everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lifting. Today's episode is being recorded on 7/27/24. This is more of an impromptu episode based on a concept that many people will find familiar. There are other additions that Joanna will more likely want to make to this, but we were originally going to do this tomorrow because this is the same day me and Ryan recorded that other video game recording. When you see that, this is done the same identical day. So this that was also impromptu. I believe this shifted to this day to make it less scheduled and to make it easier to relay the information. Sometimes you have to do it impromptu, like that, like what we said in the Agent Smith effect episode, to avoid the places everybody places concept. So, with that said, before I go any further into this, Joanna, the law of one.
We are all one, and when one is harmed, all are harmed. When one is helped, all are helped. Therefore, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all there is, that only the highest good be done. We pray for you, your friends, your family, your loved ones, to let healing energies in. Let them love you, let them nourish you, and let them bring you to your highest good. We pray for benevolence now to please come in with no conflicting agenda. We can be loved ones that have passed. It can be galactics, anyone out there, elementals, anyone who's listening, again, with no conflicting agenda to allow this conversation to be had. We ask for malevolence and any malfeasance beings to please be swept away, again, so that this conversation can be had in peace, and for you to have a greater understanding, again, of what is going on around you, what is out there, in order for you to think about it and hopefully co-create better for your life. And with that, and with great blessings that we always send your way, we say, so be it.
So be it. Isaac basically said hashtag malfeasance beings.
Maleficent. Right.
Malfeasance, but to this time it's a malfeasance being. I shall remember this. He said. So new terminology comes up every day. Malfeasance being. This was a new phrase. Malfeasance being. Malfeasance has to do with finances, but anyway.
Maybe appropriate for today's conversation.
So this is a concept that I call the Doctor Strange effect, and many people remember from the movie. And I will the original Doctor Strange, not the sequel or anywhere else like the Avengers or anything like that. This comes specifically from the movie itself. Yes, we were on a Marvel shtick, but this actually applied. We saw the movie in the hotel. One of the hotels we were in on the trip. So I apparently had to do this. Okay. The Doctor Strange effect. Whereas one is faced with one of two choices, like Doctor Strange in his hands. He was faced with healing his hands and remaining a doctor, or keeping his hands injured and remaining a powerful wizard. In life, people are often faced with such choices when in fact this whole process is in fact intricately linked at the hip to the Agent Smith effect, whereas the Matrix program offers you one of two ways or states of being, i.e. binary code and or ones and zeros. The reason I bring this up, this is part program, part, how can I put it, part spirit in this way. This also has to do with the old Scandinavian myth, whereas Thor and Loki are fighting, and Loki curses Mjolnir the hammer, meaning Mjolnir is the powerful, like basically wrecking ball that can basically manifest Thor's path. But Loki touches it and puts a curse on it. Basically, the parable in this is you don't, or the moral of it is you don't always get what you want. And even though you can manifest everything, I always have a complaint and grievance about this particular concept, because in the movie you see his hands get messed up in the accident, taking away a talent of his. Therefore, he learns another talent as a result. Yes, a bad thing then corrals or moves somebody towards a good thing, or a bad being gets you to learn about it. Therefore, you're going to this area. One biggest complaint I have about a concept like this, and The Witcher did this too, where somebody's hands got messed up and melted away because they didn't pull off spatial energy, universal energy they pulled off their own. The thing I have biggest grievance is, if you're a powerful wizard, can't you just heal your hands? Can't you just fix the things that are like your hands, like that? Can't you just heal and be healed completely? It's like somebody saying, a matrix programming saying this or that. Just like when I encounter, and it was also like the guy who gets healed in the movie, where he just picks himself, and then Mordo takes that away from him. He's crippled again. And I've run into this myself, whereas I want to switch over to some other things that we're doing. Not switch, that's the wrong choice. We're just expand what we're doing. And then maybe retool what I do in sessions or retool what I do in shows. And then always a voice says, "Oh, so do you want to quit then?" Like, no, it's a reality where our reality is stuck in binary ones and zeros. And many people equate that to the Matrix. We're not actually in a hologram. We're not actually in a hollow matrix. That is a psyops that is being put in place to get people to co-create that particular reality. What I'm trying to say is this: there's a way out of this, but I have encountered this even in recent months, whereas something is blocked in a particular way, and it's trying to corral me towards some narrative, or it's spirit on the other end of the spectrum trying to corral me both away from a danger, but to something that I'm not always completely comfortable with or very frustrated with, i.e., what happened during and before the conference with my eye getting messed up. Whereas I got shingles in the eye, and it's very frustrating. Whereas, was this actually needed to make a point towards something else? Or was then spirit would argue it would be more towards, for somebody else, it would be more like a behavioral change, a change in a state of being that humbles or calms somebody into becoming something different. Or like Doctor Strange's hands, it forced him to seek out other sources, which then he became the wizard in the series. That's the concept spirit would argue. So therefore, the allowance of the Matrix programming allows spirit to accomplish that goal. I don't always agree with that assessment. That's me as the human being, the man talking. I believe, and a friend we made named Mary, a healer, she said also, she argues with spirit too, going, can't there be an easier path to that goal? Can't there? What about all these other variations that exist out there within the multiverse or within our own avatar's reality? There are a number of different ways this can play out. And yes, you have other realities of your oversoul in the same area that are in the same reality timeline that are playing out. If you can't accomplish it, this one can. If you won't accomplish this one can. Or if you can, this one can't. It still follows the rules of the multiverse. And that's what I've been able to figure out thus far from both the program's reality and the multiverse and spirit. I don't always agree with the tactics, because you can shift and change as you go along. The more you manifest, and the more you manifest, the more the other things aren't needed. I've been told that viewpoint is more like there can be only one Highlander viewpoint. I was told that was slightly arrogant of me to say it that way. That, and also saying variant like in Marvel. No, these are other people. So I was corrected a lot and they consider the word variant a slur, and that's why I found out Marvel was using it, because it was considered a Kabbalist slur, meaning you're above everybody else. They're all variants. And multiversal selves are not equals but variant. That's what that Bjorn and I were able to figure out. But the crux of what I'm trying to say is, I myself have been, I always say spirit brick walled, where the spirit will make you hit a brick wall, and you have to go this way or this way with your methodology, or not necessarily backwards, but more within, to have a retrospection, and then go forward. And yes, from spirit's point of view or oversoul's point of view, it makes sense. As an avatar, on the other hand, living a life here, it can be overly harsh, just like when the nanos left my head, I was perfectly fine. But yet then the shingles came on, and then my eye got screwed up. I felt that was like needless punishment. And it was kind of, again, like the Doctor Strange thing. Oh, if you're going to move ahead, you got to experience something painful or this or that. And yes, I do agree, the pain can forge a person like a forge in fire type of concept, or you wouldn't be able to become who you need to become. Just like with the whole Flash concept, where the version of him where his mother died and the version of him where his mother didn't die, one was weaker than the other personality wise, one was more sensitive. So that's why Bruce Wayne says to him in the beginning, the events in our life forges. Yeah, I understand the concept, and they showed that the dichotomy of that in the movie perfectly. But no matter, regardless of what you think about the DC universe, but anyway, this the more relevant part of the conversation is what I said before. So I think you can go forward with what you want to say, Joanna.
So this actually applies to everyone. I think, again, the conversation is more of, again, how do you stay in balance with all of the conflicts around you and with your personal self and or normal personal bias that you may or may not even realize that you have. Like, for example, I think if you've had something really difficult happen to you, you certainly have a viewpoint about the people, the players, the whatever regarding all that incident. Maybe you've had a bad experience, as Chris had in the medical field, where something happened that was really
where I've been forced into seeing
years,
the good aspects of it.
For years, that would jade anyone. That would jade anyone. Normal, perfectly normal. And to be skeptical of this industry is appropriate now, because there are things going on that people are very appropriately skeptical. It's causing people to look inwards and say, I really do need to try desperately to take care of my own health, instead of reliant that there is somebody out there that's going to do the caring for me, that I can be a bit reckless. People are now beginning to realize that those people that they assumed were there really aren't as available as you think. However, there are good people there. There are good people there for all the right reasons. And so I think what can happen is, as life can alter you in one way, to get a belief system that you're starting to concrete down, that if looking at it, it's truly not for your highest good to become that far off center with this idea. I can certainly see how the oversoul or someone would come along and cause the conditions for something else to occur, to make you relook at it, to make you say, was I balanced, or what really, where is the balance all this? And maybe I became off skew in a balanced perspective, that I was then concreting down into my reality that really isn't for your highest good. So I say this is just an example, but I think everyone is facing this. Now, again, with the opposing forces that are around everyone, the good and the bad. And again, those that are all about domination and control, others in benevolence, who knows that there are many that wish to go and form a unity and different experiences with all of those opposing forces. You can certainly see the logic in those negatives who would love for you to concrete down belief systems now, based on experience, based on moments of feeling jaded, that would not necessarily be for your highest good, because we get tired and we don't always want to discern all the time. We want to just know something is this way wherever we decide what it is, and we're just going to go with it because it's easier than having to discern all the time in every situation. But in general, the goal is to discern every time in all situations, and to be able to figure out in the moment what's good or bad. So we as humans have a tendency to still want to categorize, to still want to say, this is this, this is that. We'll find all kinds of reasons to concrete that. We can easily do it. It's done all the time in trying to manipulate your thoughts. But then again, the bottom line is, will the oversoul then step in when they feel it's gone too far, and cause a situation to occur that expands you in a way that answers the questions that you're trying to answer, like, what is it all about? How does this all occur? So again, for Chris and I, a lot of these things in asking those types of questions have put us in experiences, because really you don't know until you experience. Now, certain experiences no one would want. Who would want them? That'd be crazy to want them. But when you're trying to answer certain questions on a big picture, you will get put into certain situations to learn how difficult it is. So one of the things, again, that we talk about is trying desperately to understand things well enough to help people heal. I think, again, one of the areas that, we've gingerly talk about has to do with the infrastructure that is out there with, and anybody who's now, looking or attended the conference and looked at what, certain presentations, are getting an idea that there's a bigger picture to what we currently think is going on. You have our activities on the surface, you have activities going on around us, and there are certainly factions of human beings from Earth involved in these larger pictures that aren't so kind to the regular folk. They could enslave them basically to do their bidding, things like that. And these things definitely have occurred, not new, but people are really becoming aware of it now. It was easy to think of some of these things occurring in the past, like the slaves of Egypt or whatever you wanted to see when you saw humanity really enslaved. But you didn't want to believe it was happening now. And you certainly wouldn't want to believe that it could have happened to you. But again, technology has moved on. Experiences are different. It's still the same process of an enslavement, domination, and control.
Mhm.
I wish I could say that, fairness was going to, and equity was going to come out of all of this. But this is not new. This has been going on for forever. And even if you look back at even the Anunnaki and you look about how they took this existing skin suit that we're in and they altered it again for slavers for the gold mines. People want to romanticize some of this stuff, but it isn't really something. We've come up, we've come of it. We've gained a much greater sentience and greater understanding of what's going on. But it was born again out of a slavery situation.
That, and people, if they believe they've had past lives where you were some known hero, maybe that's true. Of course, that's somewhere that's true. Or in the SSP, they believe there was some hero. And this integrates into the conversation too. I call it the hero complex, because then you believed you did something great there. Now, probably not, because there's so many millions and millions of situations.
But it's a great, is someone a very special, I'll quote her name, Penny Bradley, said to us in conversation aside that, again, we both agree with this, but they're happy to be able to plant that cover story in your mind.
Yeah, it's a cover story they put in your head. Yeah.
Because it suits them to do that. They don't give a rat's ass that you think you were a badass, because it doesn't affect them whatsoever, and it keeps you more in check. And so that's something willing. One of the things, again, that I think is starting to surface in a better understanding for those people that were in that process is what is generated. Some people could say it's programming. For those people, they have a feel for who will start to remember. They have a feel for it. They, because probably it was showing itself over there anyway. So they have a feel for it.
Sometimes they'll kill somebody like that back there, but most of the time they're able to keep somebody in check. But they got a feel for who's going to eventually do it.
Yeah. They certainly will do programming. They certainly will try to cause fights and cause self-harming.
Or track a timeline where there's markers where they think the person will sway from whatever the narrative is. Yeah.
Right. But as we say, you have to look within, because one of the things that I think I'm starting to see, I think, Chris, you will agree, you're starting to see in this that we want to bring forward, is a contrary within the self. And so one of these issues that, again, why it's so important, where we say, and we've said this before, to find the neutral, to find the calm, is because you may not see it, but people around you will see, and then maybe try to bring it to your attention, the contrary within you. And so it's like, people are saying they're triggered, but they are sometimes triggered to be their own contrary. It's like you may have a belief system that I believe this way, but I'm not acting this way. I'm acting actually almost 180 degrees difference. Now, again, they're taking most likely qualities that are good and exaggerating them to a point. It is good to be skeptical. It is good to look at things closely. It is good to understand that there are forces out there that are negative and will use and abuse, but you can also pull it to a point where you've exaggerated that so far in a personality that you may say that I feel, humans and humanity should be treated fairly, but your thoughts are very unfair.
But also say in a skeptical mindset, there's a good skeptical mindset. Then I say there's the retard side where it's totally closed down. Then you have the open one that's right here. We've even seen shows recently where somebody was skeptical in this particular area, and I felt slighted or insulted by it because my viewpoint is where I've always experienced the certain things. As a matter of fact, this person did not. And also on the religious side, you have that as well, where somebody has an indoctrinated belief system. The skeptical side and the religious side are no different than one another, just in different fields. There is a bias in place. Also, people have a bias in place they don't realize is there that could be giving them a wrong perspective or a slighted perspective of what needs to occur, what you need to see. Also, the wall that you run into with the Doctor Strange effect, where you feel you have to either have this or that. I don't believe you do. I believe that's a program, just like you have basically a slight within yourself that will, or skew that gets in the way. You have the religious belief, like what I've said in other shows before. There's one example on one side, on the religious side, where a woman believed that she needed to have her ex-husband over because of the fact that as a Christian, the Christian woman demanded, the religion demanded it, but her intuition told her the exact opposite. Her intuition ended up telling her the truth. The soul told her the truth because of the fact the cops ended up having to remove the person. You must listen to the intuition, just like on the skeptical side. Just because you're not experiencing something does not mean that there isn't a greater reality. The fact that you've been shielded for that long with that is because you are actually co-creating part of that reality with that belief system. Some could argue that skeptics are safer from some of the etheric things because they don't believe they exist. A friend of mine, an old friend of mine, actually argued that point, where through that belief it's protecting them, but on the flip side, it can be a contrary to what you need to see. And in some people, there could be the contrary thoughts, like what she was saying before, where you're saying one thing, but you're thinking and mulling around something in your head, something totally different, like what I brought up to Valiant Thor a while back, where I felt his methods were too slow. Band-Aid ripped this crap and just get it over with. To hell with the skeptics and the religious people. They can cry their eyes out. That's where I was. It's like that Trek episode where Picard introduces himself to this alien culture that just went warp, but part of the culture wasn't ready to meet the galactic community because they had a belief system in place.
And again, it's quite arrogant to say that, you're ready, thus to hell with everyone else. Guys, we're going through all of this together. It doesn't mean it changes the fact that you're not ready, but you can still expand and grow whether the person beside you is ready or not. And that's an important thing.
You don't have to wait on them.
You don't have to wait on anybody, but do you really have the right to say they're lesser than you? That your experience is just the totality of what's supposed to be happening and where they're at and what their experience and is of no value because it's hurting you, because that's the falsehood. You thinking it's hurting you isn't the truth. It's basically causing a division, which is one of the programs that are out there. So I think, again, what is really important, we get deeper and deeper into the weeds of these, try to get into the weeds of these understandings, because again, I tip my hat to domination and control in the way that the psychological warfare is going on, in the way that, psyops, be it on television, be it in shows, be it whatever. You have to tease through those. What is talking about something real and what is trying to promote agenda that somebody else wants? So you have to tease through all of that and really kind of look closely. But first and foremost, you really have to say, am I congruent with my thoughts and my actions? And if you are being honest with yourself, no one has perfected that yet. We are working on it, and some are doing great work, but you have to be willing to look at yourself and say, am I being congruent with my own thoughts and actions? And if I am not, and if I'm recognizing right now that maybe I'm far away from what I say I am, that finding that calm, as the forest people say, find the calm, get yourself into that spot, then that will help you reground, and that will help you again find yourself again to be able to do that. But you have to understand that it is, since we all have stated so many times before that this is not easy, that, and again, if you stick your head above the crowd, you may get slapped down. No one likes that. No one wants to experience that. It is not fun. Take it from us. But that doesn't mean you can exclude the rest of humanity and be mad at them. There is personal responsibility in wanting to explore and know more. And knowing more is both sides of the coin. So one of the unfortunate things is that the people, why is this happening? Well, if you decided that you didn't want it, go right back down a little bit and don't explore as much or whatever, and I bet you'll find it all calm down. That's the answer why. But then people will say, well, that's not who I am. Then guess what? This comes a little bit with the territory until you can grow yourself enough that it doesn't affect you. That is a reality going on now. We would love to say that the truth of it all was that benevolent always wins. But there are wars going on above us. There are those forces that are clashing like you wouldn't believe. I'd love to always say it wins in the benevolent side. I would love to say that. It's like, as we've been told, a pendulum swinging.
The two sides
like
are of
this.
equal power, whereas sometimes you have some race that would like to help you do things, but at the same time you have a couple others maybe opposing them. The popular belief is good always wins. Yes, that's a good co-creation where you are co-creating the positive outcome. But at the same time, you're putting that undue burden on beings out there that's like, oh, I thought you would always win this because you're genuine and good. Who wrote that exactly? Because
And to
no,
whose benefit is it for you to believe that?
yeah,
That's what I want you to understand. To whose benefit is it to believe that you actually don't have to do the work because there's a benevolent force who will always make sure that it's going to be okay?
yeah. No, and if there's a force out there that says you don't have to do any work, we got this, I would look very closely at that source. There was an email I got about a year or so ago. I'm not going to mention the beings' names. I'm not going to mention the person's name, of course. But this person said, I'm going through a course that said, oh, I don't have to do anything. I just let this simmer, and I let this whatever this healing was simmer, and that's true for about 2 weeks, actually. Believe it or not, there is a threshold there. Once you got a healing, the 2 week buffer is probably best. But in this was like 6 months or something like that, and this person went, oh no, I'm afraid to do the session with you because this will stop us. No, any teaching that says you don't have to do any sort of protection or anything like that for any length of time, really, in that respect, and you're relying 100% on other beings, I would look very closely at that. These other beings, they said a name that was really telling. If I say the being's name, it'll peg the teacher, so I don't want to do that. But in this respect, this person was saying beings of a name that did not actually exist. This person was a snake oil salesman, and I tried to warn this person about this. And I will reemphasize, any courses you're taking where some teacher is basically not trying to get you to empower yourself, they are basically saying this will hold indefinitely. Watch what they're saying. I always say when I'm working on people, you still have to work on yourself to maintain the space. And some people got mad at me because they are so used to other people saying this doing it for them, or guides doing it for them, that they don't want to hold the space and they just want to keep coming back and getting maintained. And I'm not saying that's the fault of anybody, that I've worked with or anything like that. But in this respect, there are these teachers that will say this. So again, watch for this. This is a common scam that is around. And I'm not saying faulting anybody for earning money or anything like that. But when I do things in sessions, I fix the thing in the moment, but then people have to maintain that. Now, if something else happens along the way that somebody needs help with, that's why they come to me. But I'm not going to issue an edict by which, oh, I've maintained this, you're good. No. That is a big red flag when you hear something like that, a huge one. In any courses, any classes you hear about like that, if they again are saying that they have solved it 100%, there's no such thing, by the way. That's like basically saying, like in the movie Oppenheimer, where it said near zero, because it's impossible to have it at an absolute zero. I actually thought that was funny because of the fact that this reminds me of this particular genre or this particular profession. This is a scam when you hear this, or the person is being scammed as a meat puppet or used as a meat puppet by beings that want you to believe the scam, just like when they try to say some line about inducting us in the Galactic Federation, that whole narrative. Any beings that are using that person as a meat puppet to accomplish that, or accomplish saying, oh, you're good, watch out. It's a red flag. So,
The reason that we do not name people, because we know what people are subjected to.
mhm.
We know the abductions and what happens to people to get them to come back and do things in a certain way. We're very familiar with all of that. So again, it's not about naming people. And oftentimes there is going to be things and what is said that maybe can be for your benefit, but there's also potentially going to be things that could mess you up. This is about, again, personal growth and discernment. We always say proceed with caution. Know yourself. Make sure you're being congruent within yourself, first of all. Know how to get to a neutral place when you feel like you're getting overwhelmed, because this is going to happen, and shift yourself into that place so that you can reground and get a hold of a situation. All of this stuff is occurring out there. And again, we absolutely believe in people and their abilities to learn and grow, learn information that we're trying to provide, grow with it. We always talk about that, and to be able to control their lives right now. But within this, and again, the guest who is coming in to talk with us today, again, the date, we've already said the date. It's kind of crazy out there, we must admit. A lot of interesting things have happened over the last few weeks, and probably getting a good finger of the pulse again of some of the bigger picture items. It's worth doing to let people have an idea of all of the difficulties out there as well as down here. So, Chris?
Yeah, the guest for today is Valiant Thor. I noticed my head was being touched while I felt this, and I felt this on my face. There are a couple of different beings that do this to me. My grandmother will do this and touch me on the face. My oversoul has been doing this while I've been healing from this. I've been feeling this, a centering towards the healing, like what happened when I got sick in 21. There was a centering towards that, where it was going more for cellular regeneration than psychic sight, or psionic ability, I should say. The psionic ability was going more towards cell regeneration, which is fine, but it's also annoying at the same time. That's balance. The petting on the head, somebody knows I find that irritating. When I feel fingers going through my hair like that, that's why I was doing that. Before I let Valiant Thor in, I'm gonna make sure nobody just threw anything on me. And you have to check for this also. Any reputable channelers, healers, anybody, you must check yourself on a regular basis. You can't just hop from person to person, tell readers too. So, and somebody did throw something on me. I think he was trying to tell me that I had something. So, give me a second. I'm gonna get rid of this jellyfish thingy. And we don't have time for this one. Okay. Probably got that going out. And you'll probably be asking, Chris, you have your shirt on. Yes, I have this. As you can see, I got nothing up here. Shut up, Isaac. I will rephrase. You can just tell what he just said. And yes, you have nothing in there either. But I don't have a headpiece other than my normal hat or EMF cap. I'll try to work on that in the future. Okay. Sure, I got nothing. Hmm? Okay. Yeah, Valiant Thor, if you want to check me real quick, you're faster at it. Thank you. Yeah, weird. Okay. Yeah, he said I had a few creepies. This one more creepy? All right. Odd how that keeps happening on this side while I'm healing from shingles. Not odd, it's expected to a certain extent. So, okay. Uh, Valiant Thor, is the crystal I'm using sufficient? Yeah. Oh, Undar crystal, new channel crystal. So it was sufficient for Vesa. So, and Bob, yes, I remember Bob, yes. Okay. Bob the Builder. Okay. That's what Isaac was calling him. Uh, called him Puff the Magic Dragon. Okay, stop. Okay. Valiant Thor, if you want to. Uh, yes, yes, I have to adjust because the chair gives me a wedgie. Thank you. Uh, I hate this chair with a burning passion because it is very butt unfriendly. So, yes. Okay. You bought it. Yes, I know. All right. Not screwing around. Huh? Mhm. Simple. I asked him also not to do his shingles medication because it would have interfered with the tactile, how can I put it, interfacing, even with the crystal. And this is what Elaine and Vessa warned him about as well. They can do channels, but at the same time, where they come from, they would be allergic to the different medication residue coming out through the skin. I have other protections in place as well, but the in the blood would have inhibited psionic connection, which that yes, that is a drawback. But I want to point out one fact surrounding the healing before we continue on into the other areas. Yes, the psionics were going into cell regeneration and healing. However, healing is also a result. The forebear had this correct. The healing also is a result of the inner retrospection and the allowance of good things to take place. Therefore, the healing takes place in the energetic respect and also body, mind, soul, heart, all of this heal. Now, with his sometimes his limitations looking, there is a good reason for this. You have seen yourself, even being in Florida, did you not? Some of the activity more broad in your country, even just a little bit further south, like in Florida. There are things going on right now. There are ETs roaming about. They were at your convention. There were natives like the dragon. There were people there that were psionically capable, both good and bad, that were in the public and around you, and in other buildings and such around, even staff, I would say. But did you not realize that I also was present there? I don't think he did because he does not like he calls it too slow of a style integration, the generational integration of permanency. He understands the millimeters and centimeters, but believes that since he is somebody that's further along in the information, which yes, I agree, but also there's a bias there that maybe these people could skip a rung too. That is not always so, because what were their experiences in the mighty multiverse of possibilities? What people always say, oh, a new soul comes in, they don't have enough information. Wrong. There is no such thing as an old and new soul. All of them are eternal, and all of them have been here since the conception of soul's creation. That is incorrect to say is young and old. It's just one that comes in to experience different things than other ones, and other avatars of the same oversoul are experiencing contraries. Now, though some of those contraries can be within the same person via things like the secret space programs and the like, giving an altar somewhere by which then shows the contrary of personality, showing it within the same being. Therefore, it creates a permanency of change. It creates a permanency of change when you have completely experienced that concept. Now, I know this is no comfort to people that have experienced these things. And yes, does there deserve to be some form of justice? And should you manifest and co-create this? Absolutely, you should. Because there is heavy injustice going on right now. I fully and totally agree. Does it mean that speeding things along will help? Maybe for you, maybe for those that have gone through these things. But have you thought for a moment, without co-creating it further in your society at the acceptable faster rate, what that looks like on the other end of the spectrum? I know for those that have gone through it, that is little consolation. And again, I agree. If you are being targeted, know that every single human being on the earth is being targeted. The reason you're feeling it more is that your head is to the ceiling and it is poking above the plaster in the ceiling. Whack. And think of it, he saw this in a dream years ago where he put his head above a hole in the ceiling and there were a bunch of cats hitting him in the head. Basically, he thought the dream was about ego and tempering the ego, which was not necessarily false, but it was more or less he was putting his head above the plaster ceiling, and the cats in that respect represented what he thought was knowledge pushing on him, but it really was the junk layer, and he was decoding it as cats, which is weird that they would choose that symbol. But in that retrospect, excuse. It was also some demonic garbage because some of them can take cat form. But it was the psionic resonation and the dampening that was actually the representation there. And a friend of his was in the dream representing those that not necessarily were farther behind, but were not in the same place as him and would not walk the same path. A skeptical friend of his from a long time ago. I will not name names as you read your request. That's what that's back in the 90s. When talking about 90s, him and his friend Ryan were talking about a 90s game. This was roughly around the same time frame he had that dream. And the high school is 97, to be exact. 97, 98. But this is why that occurred, is representing that. Those that stick their head above, and I'm not saying always co-create the I target or I'm targeted, targeted individual thing. Yes, are you targeted? Yes, so is everyone. Does this make you any more special? No. Does this mean you notice more? Yes. Do you deserve justice? Yes, you do. Does it mean that you can Band-Aid rip it? No. Can you co-create more of a change? And unmanifest, as your Miles Johnston said very aptly, unmanifest their boundaries or their restrictions? Absolutely. You can do this. Absolutely so. This was great that he said this and you say this, and it coincides. For some people, they think people have to draw the sword. Yes, in a manner of speaking, yes, you can. But at the same time, know they are looking for that, and that you can change things permanently. So think of it this way. Say you saw a tank rolling down Main Street. Would you go running out of your house and be the Chinese person at Tiananmen Square, or would you watch that tank go by? Was it noble of that man to do what he did? Did it bring about change? Yes, it did. But do you need to be a martyr? Or do you observe as that tank rolls by? And do you observe how fast it rolls, what color the tank is, what its armaments are, and which direction it's going? And could you co-create and manipulate eventually the direction that tank drives? Yes. I'm not saying be a brainiac all the time. Could you slowly direct it down a street by which then it eventually rolls into a kill box where everybody has bazookas standing on the roof? Yes, of course. That's what the co-creation is. I'm not saying there won't be times where that you can't be an activist and can't bring about change. And I am saying this in all respect for what people have gone through, and I am saying this in all respect towards both the warrior, and the energy worker, which is also another type of warrior. But can it be transmuted into a way that makes things permanent? Yes. Does it mean that warriors are any lesser or greater? No, in the traditional respect, because they are needed. All components are needed here. All hands on deck. I'm just saying there's more than one way to cut a pie. And are all these things unfair? 100%. But it does not mean that the Band-Aid rip completely will work. Those that are around you, I'm not saying wait on anyone. That's that holier than thou Archangel Michael bullshit. And I say this in all due prejudice towards that source. But because those channelings always said you must wait on the others to ascend. That is complete bullshit. You allow yourself to move forward. Those that do not go with you. It's not the left behind concept. It is the splitting of the densities, whereas they walk one way and you walk another. This is not an unnatural thing. It is a very natural process, and you must have allowances for this. You walk your path. You walk your path of justice. You walk your path of energy. You walk whatever path you are meant to. And leave people the hell alone. You are not there to evangelize or wake them up, except through the example by which you walk. You are not there to evangelize and say, you are lesser because you are stupid. Yes, there is stupid. I will grant you. I've run into plenty of it over the decades. Trust me, your government's full of it, full of shit. Trust me. I've been around them enough in the Pentagon. But to then decree someone is lesser than you, even though there is a dumbing in place or psionic dampening, they're not a lesser soul. They're not a lesser in body, form, or light or shadow. Yes, do they have then more of a potentiality to be programmed and harm you? Absolutely. That is correct. And he is right to be cautious in that area. It does happen and has happened. It's a form of targeting. But it doesn't mean that that individual being programmed knows what they do. And I am quoting that, yes, the Bible by saying, forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. Do not pay attention to the father-son aspect, but they know not what they do is still apt. Can this be co-created out of existence? Yes, it can.
So with all of that being said, I think the one thing that I have now noticed is that within all of this chaos is actually the time to really start actively looking for moments where you can create unity. And I think even you being here is a perfect example of what does that look like? Because if you watch TV, if you watch politics, if you watch government, if you watch whatever, they're showing you every single way not to unify. They're taught, it's either, you do throw the baby out with the bathwater. You do all of these things. They are trying to model that behavior because they want your institutions locally, your schools, your churches, whatever, to act the same way. Because what is actually going to bring all of humanity forward and expand those that are feeling that they're expanding even more quickly is the concept of unity, meaning you don't have to always agree. You and I do not completely agree on the speed of things. That's easy enough to say. A lot of people that are surrounding us right now may also not agree that it has to be done at the slow rate. So, but we both agree, right, that there is something to this consideration that understands that every soul on this earth is important and that everyone has a right to learn and grow at their own pace. And they can't be shattered. The goal is not to shatter them to the point because their energies are important. So all of that must be considered.
Yes, even if you have a splitting of the densities from that person, just know there are those around you and those that you've interacted with. And I'm saying this generally and personally, that are more of like mine. Yes, tighter circle, deeper roots, as he would say, and Odin has said, and Bjorn has said, and you have said. But at the same time, does this truly apply to humanity as a whole in the ways of your tight circle of friends and family? But does it apply to in a concept of lesser or greater? Or apply in a concept of, say, the dominant, meaning those that are more controlled are not worthy of attention? Wrong. Now, are also the term NPC that has popped up, non-playable character? Yes, are people programmed, again, like you said in the Agent Smith effect? Yes, what you said was 100% correct. Does it mean that the soul that is being controlled within that is any lesser or greater? No. Just like some of your insiders have said, they've put values on souls almost like it's currency. That's the soul trade nonsense right there, where they've said, oh, there's just some souls that don't go anywhere. There's some people that are just too stupid as they're roaming around. And as he's said, that shouldn't be breathing the same air as us. I have encountered such people. I have encountered such arrogance and such evil. I fully understand where this is coming from. And yes, I get frustrated as holy piss at them, especially being around them in the energies here on Earth, all of it. It's very frustrating and very annoying. I've even had shouting matches with people myself. But does this mean that you would have the right to be the overlord, overseeing the dummening, like the people that created the dummening or the psionic dampening? No. Would it also give you the right to flip the switch and put people through hell in the other way? No. It's he thinks it's like that Star Trek episode where they shut the computer mind control off about the Return of the Archons episode that was about lunar and time cycles with a computer controlling Landru controlling them. Yes, they flipped it off and people went back to how they were. Would that happen? Yes, but there's also some unforeseen consequences without a flooding of decoding entering the mind. Is there a safer way to do this? Yes. Do you remember, in short term history here, you cited the fact that you thought I caused some of the blackouts that are out there based on earlier information of trying to get rid of AI controlling consciousnesses, did you not? This is partially true. The other part is the bad guys wanted to black things out and cause problems with the updates that had flight delays to cause chaos. That's like with the bank in Silicon Valley. I wanted people to know what that looked like if a bank collapsed. So I allowed them to implode their own resource. Just like I wanted people to understand and know what it looks like if the power grid would go down, or if something would be delayed, even or taken down, even in the slightest bit of time, which you saw was a small amount of time. Look at the chaos it caused. Look at the chaos that was caused by that small amount of movement. I took the opportunity to fix a few things, but I also, he always says, like that scene in your Good Omens, where Gabriel says, we're not exactly hurting Job, but we don't stop hell. It was one of those situations where, okay, these guys are going to cause something. I want you to see what that looks like. That may seem cruel in its application. It was in the context the show said. It was retarded, I know. But in this respect, it was warranted, so you knew what Chaos, the new Schwabenlanders, and the rest of them were doing in their own private war amongst factions. They were trying to disrupt each other. And in the consequence of that, they considered the collateral damage your people. They considered all the sides in this, except for one, considered paying attention more to their faction, or the opposing factions, than who would be hurt in between. And that essentially is like the cabal factions, like in your politics and your left and right, your Trump and Biden type of thing, where they're more apt to aim at each other than get who gets hurt in the middle. This is what I wanted to show during that time. Who gets hurt in the middle? Imagine if you had been stranded in one of those airports for a couple of days, like you saw at the conference with some people. This is exactly what I'm talking about, where it disrupted things. Even if you were, say, on a road trip and you had to take detour after detour, wouldn't that change the dynamic of your trip? Wouldn't that change it, even if it's millimeters and centimeters? Say if you ran into a detour sign every maybe 20, 30 miles or so, it would still divert the time it took and the way it took to get there. Now, would you say there's divine reasoning or spirit reasoning in there where you were supposed to avoid another area by which, because something was going on? One could argue that. But imagine if you took too many of these, it would be a very different, after a while, very different direction. Like if you were building a house and you were off by a millimeter every measurement, that house would be a house of cards after a while. This is what I wish to do to Cabal interests and New Schwabenlander interests. Every little change is a change to make their house a house of cards. He even had a vision sequence where he was seeing this in a game setting in his Saints Row the Fourth game setting, where the Earth ends up getting destroyed. He put himself in that scenario where he went back in time and released these little Quidditch ball looking things into the atmosphere, millimeter and centimeter. We have had to do this thing before. He was picking up on a real thing, but he was applying it to a game he was looking at, where he would just release something and therefore it would completely undo the calamity, like your Lazarus project show that shows how they turn back time and save the world, even though that is propaganda that's being shown. They can turn back time, or like the Flash in your DC's Justice League, where he went back and stopped Darkseid. It's kind of a similar thing, where you're putting up a protection grid in millimeters and centimeters, so it is eventually impossible for a darker force to end this world. Just like what was seen in the Saints Row the Fourth, where the world got blown up. That'll never happen. And it was by a reptilian source. No, they wouldn't even do that because they would lose their food source. Stupid. I'm just saying, even though your character decapitates Zeniac at the end, I'm just saying, the point he was saying was, and the point of the writer was saying, get rid of that evil source. Even though there's some propaganda there, but also the millimeters and centimeters of what he was seeing in the narrative in each time frame he walked into is exactly what we've done. We've even released little devices that can communicate across time and protect the integrity of the temporal barriers, where someone can't go back and really fuck things up. Sometimes, of course, that's like a time core thing, like what some of your insiders have talked about, where they sometimes they have to guard the timeline so somebody doesn't go back and de-evolve a society. That's a responsibility of a culture. That's actually true. But in this respect, we have released those things to make sure, not guiding a Mandela effect, but making sure things can progress naturally. If someone tries to invade a certain space, very much like you saw on your What on Earth with those blimps that would guard the Mexican border so the cartels couldn't fly their planes in, this is the system that's set up dimensionally and temporally. Dimensionally, it's like Doctor Strange, where they have those barriers on the sanctums. It's the same identical thing, but in different time frames they were released. Therefore, they carried the temporal energy and the time frame they were released in, like you see in your Trek, where every person that is born in a particular time frame carries a certain temporal frequency. And when they jumped ahead in Discovery, they all lost consciousness, and one went into an aphasia stage where she had to be sent back. That's a true concept for an object too. Very much like in your Cabal, when they sent back certain historical artifacts, they knew people were using carbon dating. It would always give the wrong date, carbon dating. Temporal dating is what you need to look for, where a time frame where something originated. Therefore, it was during the temporal war or temporal Cold War, like you see in Trek, or was it carried temporal frequency, like you see in Enterprise, where you see certain piece of equipment hold a temporal frequency, and the Vulcans don't believe it. You haven't seen that part yet from the time of this recording. But at the same time, our piece of equipment hold a temporal frequency, and by which then they age as time goes on, they all meet and they create this barrier. I know that was long-winded, but this is something that needed to be spoken about.
So you were correct. I kind of made it clear anyway to Chris that you were the very first person that went into my mind as far as potentially having something to do with all of this. If I heard you correctly, there was, again, besides trying to show others that this may not be in their best interest to continue down the path that they're continuing, that they're going to hurt just as much or even more, which I believe is what you said, but that there was also an attempt to release something that for humanity as a whole, that would be something that was much better than the inconvenience that happened at the time. And it was done in a way, again, where it's just done, not spoken about, just kind of done. But you did run across, obviously, there was some resistance waiting. So overall, how do you feel those moments went for yourself and for humanity as a whole during that time?
It went, I'd like to say it went swimmingly, but it did not. Where there was a back and forth. I'm putting an image in his mind where he saw years ago where there was an episode of that show Criminal Minds when him and his mother watched it, whereas there was an investigator trying to hunt down a criminal, and then the townspeople or people in a regular neighborhood not understanding that these people were trying to find this particular criminal. They weren't saying anything to the public, so the public automatically assumed that they were in on it or trying to cover it up or trying to aid and abet. When in fact you can't say everything in a situation if you expect to win. I'm not saying sacrifice people or anything like the Coventry maneuver like Churchill did to defeat the Nazis in World War II because England had discovered the cipher type of thing. I'm talking about in those situations we ran into this very same thing where in fact we attempted to be more open to the public in some areas. We tried this. They rebelled against us because they thought very much like what he said, and also the character of the woman in the neighborhood in that respect even tried to assault one of the agents in the show when they weren't actually telling what was going on. We ran into this exact same scenario, and was this kind of a experiment in disclosure? Yes. We attempted to come forward and say what was going on. The first thing people did was rebel against us. The very first thing when we disclosed things to try to get people involved in the direct way was that of anger, that of rebellion, that of vengeance. And it is understandable where this came from. And was there some control, in fact, in that? Yes. We told him we couldn't get you all involved in, say, the equipment side of it. We would like your help in this. It did not go well. He's even seen in his mind, again, a scenario where it was like a Walking Dead type of scenario where he was in control of a computer system. Or a ship in orbit, delegating things. And this is the mystery behind this that he wanted solved. Whereas he told people, hey, you can access this. You can't just control it. Like, you have to have people that are qualified to run the positions and stuff like that. First thing people did said, you're trying to keep it from us, and then tried to set the place on fire. This has happened throughout history. It happened even in recent history. This attempt has been made several times to actually get around this. It's not like we haven't done it and haven't defied government treaties. And yes, did I make agreements on Eisenhower's time frame with the 100 years disclosure? Yes, I did. And did Eisenhower then subsequently sign the fact that the bad aliens could abduct people? Yes, he did. I don't like this, but every single time we have attempted to come forward and to even in like a government agent type form, the people have rebelled against us with anger every single time because they feel we don't know their pain. We don't know what they've gone through, that we're not in the trenches. And some races that can apply. We've been here with you since the very beginning, since the last Orion War. So yes, we know exactly what is going on. We know who we're up against, what we're up against, and should people be informed about some of these things, like a response team for like an Avengers or like a Doctor Strange or like the Mozendu, or should people be actively involved? Yes, but each and every single time we've done that flinch test, like what the forest people would say, guess what happened? And I'm not trying to put people down. I know the indoctrination and the beliefs and they expect it done in a certain way, or they are not they're not lesser or they're not greater. They're not even stupid. They're just they just weren't ready for it. And even good factions out there have defied the rules. He's always saying, why doesn't a group be the wildebeest across the stream? It has been, and both government forces and the people were the crocodiles that grabbed the first wildebeest across the stream. We have attempted it multiple times. It would have to be more people, not necessarily waking up per se. It would have to be more people that are in the Halam or calm state to be able to handle, as he's been told, the neutral state. Like, say, your UFOs, for instance. What do people do when they see them? Now, have you noticed? As he says, they are either in awe or they are in fear. You have to have a neutral state looking at it. And this is where he gets this from. He says it in a more frustrated, angry way, but he gets it from us where we have attempted this before. One of the other times we attempted this, it was hijacked by the Orions, which you are familiar with Medjugorje and Fatima. We attempted this to get rid of engage or gauge where people were. The first thing that happened when we tried this is the Orions took it over and made themselves look like Jesus Christ and Mother Mary, and said that and put it in a prophetical form. We were not responsible for that. We were attempting to communicate with people through radio, attempting to communicate with people through equipment and in person. Again, this was just after I came to this world in the 1950s. We attempted this. This is actually a historical fact, but the Orions attempted to take it over, and your government wrote a bunch of propaganda bullshit about it. This was actually us. He knew it as Afa and Paknar, but that didn't happen. We don't have anybody by that name. He knew them as Tyler and Sebastian. That was bullshit. That was some GF nonsense that got thrown in there, and Orion nonsense, because there was a contract with the Orions that if somebody attempted this, they had to come in with some of their own bullshit. Very much like how when they attempted to manicure Hitler and them, the Mosen found them out and had to help the United States and Great Britain during the war, so that one side didn't take over. It wasn't a one ring to rule them all kind of situation. When we attempted something, the GF pushed back. Even though we are a sect of the GF, they saw us as violating a treaty by doing this. Not enough wildebeests crossed the stream. So, to answer your question, how was it going over the years and now? It's not necessarily the same. It's a pendulum swing. As Vessa said, this is why she was telling him to hurry in the previous conversation. Like she said, there's a pendulum swing and a rebalancing going on. Yes, there's overage. Yes, we want to respond to it with a response team. Yes, we want to take care of some of these negative factions. Yes, we want to deal with all this. It's not always possible to do it. And we don't believe in the whole collateral damage concept because that puts people below. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do in really harsh situations. You have to make tough decisions. It's not like the Ahsoka decision where she tries to elect to leave the guy behind in the other star system. He disagrees with that. I disagree with that Jedi form. That's propaganda. That's more Sith or evil at that point. You do not involuntarily sacrifice someone. But if it means the whole world, like, so kill one to save 1,000, yeah, okay. I like that little boy in your Umbrella Academy who was strategizing, okay, we kill these people, therefore they're potentially going to do this. No. That's more Kabbalistic. That's what that meant. The MJ12 references and such in that show. But where I'm going to cap what I just said off with the fact that it's going, and we are doing what we can to keep that balance. And have we crossed the stream or tried to cross the stream multiple times? We have been called out for it every single time, again, either by the GF, your government, and that contract, even myself have been called out, and the people themselves. Not only because of the Mr. Smith or Agent Smith effect, but the psionic dampening, and people are used to a certain way of being. Any disruption to that, it's like the Matrix, where people are so enamored with the system they fight to protect it. That is a true statement. It doesn't make them our enemy, like it says in the movie. Yes, it can if they accost you, like in Matrix 4, where they were literally attacked Neo and Trinity in them, where it was that Neil Patrick Harris's character in it, the psychiatrist, attacking it with propaganda and physicality through the people, using them and programming them. That's what that meant, psychiatry and programming. But it just means that they are defending a way they're used to. And are they completely at fault for that? No. But can they be used against change? Yes. But again, are they at fault? No. But are they responsible for their own audits, like he likes to say? Yes. So it is somewhere in the middle of that.
So, I think, again, going back to the concept of trying to understand the importance of finding where people can unify. And I think, again, one of the simplest way is, to just look at other people with the right to have their experiences, whatever they can be. That would be helpful. However, it doesn't mean that you have to be in the same sandbox as them.
Mhm.
That other people can have their experiences on the other side of the world. There's certain
Mhm.
countries over there I never plan on visiting.
Nope.
Never want to have anything to do with them because they're in a cultural experience that is well within my past, let's just say, of hundreds of years ago of experience, that's what they're doing now.
Medieval, yes.
But it doesn't mean that they don't have the right to exist.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean that sometime in one of maybe your past lives that you weren't right there doing the same thing. So you have to understand the bigger picture, but there's plenty of people around you right now that you would be surprised how you can find common areas of conversation,
Mhm.
and that you can start some of that unity. I think there was a good attempt at that at the conference that we just
Yes,
attended.
most definitely.
I thought it was done with genuineness of heart. It was not corporate. This was a genuine attempt to try to bring a mass amount of people. So many people wanted to talk and share. I know the people putting it together were trying so hard to accommodate everybody. I certainly applaud all of the efforts that were done, but
Mhm.
you could see that there wasn't complete like-mindedness, and that's okay. I think, again, the overarching picture that was the unifying part of that conference was the genuineness from the heart space of everybody to have a genuine conference. And so you could have differencing of opinions, but everyone appreciated what was going on in the attempts. And, I hope this kind of continues. You don't want all like-mindedness. You
No.
really do in a unity want different perspectives. It's like I say about, even again, throwing the baby with, out with the bathwater with certain religion components. If you look at all the mainstream of all the main religions, there is a core that runs through them that is identical.
That's what the bad guys are trying to get you to do by saying the planet, like in your Doctor Who, when that cow being was hunting people, and that saying that it was going after their religious beliefs, and the doctor said when planets go secular, the beings can't feed off you. That is absolutely not true. So there are good components that can be left. The planet does not have to go completely secular. It does not necessarily have to go the complete skeptical route like they show in Star Trek. Some people have their spiritual beliefs. That's why they're trying to reintegrate that in your Discovery, by the way, because they're trying to show, yes, it should be there. But at the same time, are my people trying to change some things there to get some of the evil woven out of there? Yes, to unwrap that tapestry so you can see some of the bad things. Yes, I won't name company names or anything, but I will name the Vatican. Remember your father Amort? There was that better half there that was more ancient oriented. that could accomplish things that the public church cannot. So, should these organizations stay? Well, I know people like to go the Casey route or Casey route and say, "Oh, the church was destined to fall in its current form." Don't you think we had a hand in writing some of those prophecies over the period of time? So you would co-create things differently. Now, the bad guys would say it completely wiped out. This is what they told Edgar Casey partially. It said, "Oh, the church will is destined to fall," meaning it all had to collapse. All teachings must go. Goodbye. And that sounds like a good idea in theory. But what if the entire religious platform of all world religions collapsed right now? Some people out there would go, woohoo, would that happen? You wouldn't want to woohoo that, because at the same time, with a band-aid rip that big and that massive, what would happen to trying to get anything good out of those belief systems and unified in some way? It would be impossible at that point. It would have to, like in your Star Trek universe, it would have to switch over. Not necessarily a new world order fashion like they want. That's why they're dropping the borders, you see. Like they want North America to be one and Europe to be one. They want it all to be one under their world rule of one ring to rule them all. The minimum requirement to get into the Galactic Federation. What he likes to say, like getting an insurance policy, the minimum requirements, or credit check, or some like you're buying a car or a house, the minimum requirement. It's exactly that. They base things on that way, like you see in Jupiter Ascending, where you have all the bureaucracy, or in Star Wars, where you have the Senate. It's exactly like that. Who votes on what? Did they meet the minimum requirement? Did this like your insurance or Medicare or something? It's kind of like that. It's retarded, but I'm just saying, I don't support it the slightest. But New World Order wise, would they want to blend in, all those cultures and lose them? Yes, because they want it to be one global culture. You can still keep all of the cultures intact, even the currencies intact, and still have galactic trade. It's stupid the way they have this set up, and I completely forbade it. You can actually have their currency be each company's or nation state's currency to turned into galactic trade value and use it that way. They could enter a couple of representatives into the Galactic Senate. They just don't want to budge. They could have a group represent a planet instead of one person. They can easily change this. They have to be willing to bend. They are obstinate. They're like, no, the minimum requirement is like an emperor, king, and or kingship. You can have a group, but one must speak for that group. And I've always told them, you can't have that with Earth. This must change. You have to have a collective. Other planets have also advocated where other people have moved to a particular world and it's kind of a situation similar to Earth. That has happened, even though it's one culture evolved on one world, like that South Park episode said. But at the same time, you have had other citizens, like Lyra, for instance, has a couple of different cultures. Other planets, like you see in your Star Trek universe, the Xindi planet, were a bunch evolved on the same world. Yet they still, in the Star Trek lore, invited that planet into the Federation after a while. This is what the Galactic Federation doesn't see, is that value. And also there are other groups out there that have their own little federations that would be more than happy to include Earth, or help Earth create its own, or you create your own and they're invited in. There's so many ways this can go. And it is not just a one trick pony or one ring to rule them all, like the Martian Germans went, or else you would be all speaking German with implants in your neck or teeth or wherever, and be extremely strict on what genetics bred with whom. That is what some of those people want. And it's good you're co-creating that out of existence. You know you don't want that. But at the same time, you have the flip side that wants lawlessness and the leftist and rightist that are harsh on one side, Nazism on one side, and extremist socialism on the other. And it is really stupid. But at the same time, you can't have borders open, everybody mixed, and you can't have a police state either. You have to find the unity and harmony in between here. It is an absolute must if you want to move forward.
And most regular people do look at other cultures and think they're great and like what, again, they're trying to associate the lawlessness and all of these character traits to cultures to say that
Yes.
culture needs to be weeded out. That culture needs to be weeded out.
Oh, they're dirty, they're inferior, they're, yeah, all of
Yeah,
this.
they
Yeah.
cause problems.
They
They
cause
have no
problems.
respect for people. They do this, that, and the other.
Wrong. They just have their own vision of reality. That's all.
Yeah, they do. And again, within a unity, you do have some foundational belief systems that everyone agrees with. Usually, how to conduct yourself and treat one another is kind of a foundational. This is what we say we're all going to be about. But understand the trickery out there of how they are going about trying to dissolve certain cultures and say that they're unworthy and they need to go rather than
Wrong.
cherish some of the way. And
Just-
again, even looking at the bigger picture, even looking at what I believe, and we call it a religious sense, I refer to it as a bigger spiritual sense. It is normal for where most people believe there's something larger than ourselves, because there is something larger than ourselves. It's based upon a truth that, from my understanding, even as we progress and grow, some of those spiritual questions will still go on, because you've been created to explore all that anyway. So they've taken something that's very real that people naturally feel, and they've perverted it. And so, you don't want to throw the baby with the bathwater. When you do that, it also makes it easier to meld with AI and to completely go out and do something.
And losing your identity and all this.
Right.
And yes, also, it's like also going backtracking a minute. It's like that scene in Your Man in the High Castle where that one boy's father says if he launches all of those missiles on other cultures, oh, we can eliminate all these other people and we would finally have world peace and world unity. That's how the Martian Germans view things, exactly as they showed in that episode, not even considering that they could fuse or meld or have any sort of agree to disagree with any of the cultures. Those people are so far removed. We are working on that problem as I'm speaking now, to try to blend back together, but still people have a right to their cultures, even them, just not destroying other people's cultures because they don't agree with them, or poisoning the food, poisoning the water. Even the cabal satanic people, and I use that term lightly, have been so far removed. We are attempting to fix those things at the root and rewrite that. Doesn't mean we want to rewrite culture as a whole. No, this is a distinction. Just because we're trying to weed out the bad doesn't mean we don't keep the good. And even Mars, with the Martian Germans there, do we want to see people there annihilated? Are there good people there? Yes. Are there other cultures on that planet? Yes. Does it need to be a graveyard by the time you see it? No. Does the bad extreme separatist crap have to be removed? Yes, but it doesn't mean people will get to see Mars right away, even though they favor it because they're recognizing something from the past. No, but at the same time, can it be made so that the people there that are already starting to gravitate away from the Nazism that their forebears or their ancestors put in place back when the Nazis first went there, are they already separating from that little by little? Yes, they are. Are people going to be shocked when they go out in the system and see this? Yes, but it doesn't mean that certain people that live there don't have a right to life either.
Right, and understand what you don't understand even about
people would want to control and blow up Mars on it for all they've done, and I don't blame them, but they can't. That can't happen.
Because you don't even actually know the bigger atrocities that they do to themselves.
Yes.
And I can't even state that enough. I mean, I agree. I want this to stop, but you'll want to sit and sob if you hear some of the stories and some of the things that I've actually seen, to tell you that they have no problems cutting off a limb of their own and letting it die.
Yes.
I mean, they don't even care that much
that
about
is what we
their overall,
yeah.
Right, their overall people. They will cut them loose, let them die off like a limb, just because it's convenient for them. And I can't say that enough. No other reason but convenience. And so, that is a chore right there for you. I can just tell you that, because good luck.
It is working in some respects. We have gotten them to stop certain experiments that they were running on Mars. We noticed there is a distinct separation between some of the newer generation and some of the older generation that are actually still there from the World War II timeframe. We noticed that there is a distinct split in some areas. It's not a complete split, say you have a dividing line forming, and like say you have a zipper forming at the bottom here. It is actually just starting to widen a little at the bottom where you're unzipping something, and one half eventually will be the old goats that are, I say that humorously, but they also have satyrs and crap around them, so it was actually more of a joke. It makes them look retarded. So, like I love the Hans and Franz reference he always brings up because it makes them look retarded. And the more you use humor on them, the fact that they can't take a joke and they never could, the more the younger generation will get it. And so that history doesn't need to be forgotten. It needs to be changed. That ritualistic crap they do in the name of their God is an atrocity and a crime against humanity. And what they are doing currently to the human race is a crime against humanity. Could we openly all take them in battle? No. We have older technology, but again, they have backing with people that have equal standing. This is something you must remember. Yes, there's Draco reptilians in there. They aren't as big of an issue as you think.
Nor are they the overlords that
No.
they're making you think they are.
No. They are scattered and have been scattered to little pissant tribes for a long time. More like chieftains. They were once powerful, but they are the scapegoat, very much like in your Picard season 3. What happened? Who are being used as the shield? The shapeshifters, the Dominion shapeshifters that were in the middle, and they thought those were the bad guys at first. Who was the bad guy? AI. Who was the bad guy? The Borg. In this instance, it's similar, but the answer in this would surprise you. It is not just AI. It is not. I mean, you have the AI deity with its plugs and all the planets and stuff. That's actually changing. That the multiversal constant in that area is changing, where it's shifted. But the answer would surprise you as to who is allowing this, and it goes right back to your ICC, the Intergalactic Corporate Conglomerate, and the Galactic Federation. If we opposed, and it would be the same as when we stepped forward before, if we opposed them and then try to actually slowly integrate things, guess who would show up at the doorstep here to try to reintegrate that? Other worlds would, even though they don't agree to it, there are treaties that were signed, and the Orions had somewhat to do with. The Orion Grades are actually part of this, where they got the Galactic Federation, and you know this, you've said this about the Star Trek Discovery comparison before. Even ones that were green, like Osira and everything, were in there, were hashing out a treaty. This meant that if any world tried to interfere here on Earth with any other faction, no matter what it was, that if they took them on open battle, all the other factions would cream them. All the other groups would cream them. Groups don't agree with this, but those who do not participate in this will get nailed. And you might be asking, well, Valiant Thor, what about the groups that aren't part of the GF? Same thing would happen. So even if it's whoever signed it or not, it doesn't matter. This is why your medic aliens, you've heard of the Velodians, you've heard them on your Gaia network before. They're not actually completely called that, but that's just a name that they've used. Trisonian, Velodian, there's potato in some areas. Well, they can't come forward because it's complicated politics. Yes, it is. They have come forward in a disguised form. He heckles races that don't show their true face in channelings. Okay, channeling is the loophole. I will agree. Show yourself. But at the same time, if they walked up to you and then wiped your memory afterwards, and it has happened, and they'll go, damn, did I forget to do that? They might get cited for it in either a lesser or a severe way. And if those Velodian medics tried to come in here and they cured even one disease here, they would be eaten alive by the GF. They would literally lose world status within the GF. They have that sort of Damocles. Any of these groups have this sort of Damocles over their head, where the GF will refuse to defend them against the galactic piracy and the soul trade in some areas. They would literally get not necessarily culled, but they wouldn't be protected if somebody else showed up on the doorstep. And there are plenty of different bad guys out there. This was enough to spook the crap out of some groups. And you may ask, why don't all the planets do it? fear. Fear that it would embroil in galactic conflict again, like what happened in the last Great War. They don't want this. It has been instilled in them from the Orions and other groups since that time, and they're afraid to do it. This is why the method that we use is working.
And again, as we've said before, on the backside of the moon are remnants of that war that
Yes,
still sit here to this day to
definitely.
remind those that are going by and looking at it that you don't want this again.
Yes, and it is being used as a damn cudgel too, because they'll go, "You want this to happen in your world again?" But it's the real reminder was, "Do you want to embroil in a war again?" And it is being mentally used against them.
Why not? Because that is how they operate, right? But I do appreciate something you said about the youth on Mars, because again, you brought it full circle with your first part of your conversation about, do you want to be the one that stands out in front of the tank, or do you want to sit back, look, watch, observe, and then as you grow older and find more like-minded people to have yourself be known more in that type of
and
group.
You're no good when you're dead, even though there is like an Obi-Wan Kenobi complex where, yes, I'm more you strike me down, I'll be more powerful. Yes, in theory, yes, you would be. Would you escape some of the soul traps of yes. People have got it in their opinion where they have to do this in order to. That's not the only way to do it.
It's not. And again, believe me, I'm not giving grace, but I will tell, to these factions or whatever, I'm not trying to do that. But I am telling you there is a harsh reality of living in those things, because they do cull their own. They really cull their own. They only want certain genetics. They want certain types of empathy wiped out of those genetics.
They're insane, yes.
Yes. And so they do cull their own branches if they think you could potentially be a stray hair that wouldn't fall in line perfectly. And so they're horrible to their own as well as to humanity.
They see it as a cancer. So just like when he saw his trip to Lystaria in the secret space program, whereas he saw the Nazis had taken over an old ancient stronghold, had a big wheel-like, cog-like door. It was like a big timepiece. It was, and they turned it into a base underneath, where they would blow a horn outside to make sure their own people got into this structure before they let loose a false flag. You saw this with some of your other insiders on your Gaia network, whereas they were talking about different creatures that would be unleashed on the different planets. That actually happened there. He saw monkey-like things in uniforms and frog-like things on a different one. In that specific situation, though, yes, they were culling that down. They were ripping their belief systems apart, all of that. This is something that I truly hope is judged as a crime. As it stands with what Lystaria looks like currently, it would not be recognized as anything but a mining colony at the moment. Only to very few people is it known what it used to be. And this is something that we strive to change. We do not want a conquering army or a militant arm out there in the galaxy. We want humanity's face to be a good one out in the galaxy. We want the resources that have been even plundered to be well worth the sacrifice that unfortunately took place. We want the management, let's just say we want the leadership to change. We want, just like in your Skyrim, where you saw the two factions of the Civil War, and you saw the elf lady come in and were beating both factions over the head with the white golden cordon, which there's a contract that was shown within the game that actually took place. What I just mentioned before, you also had your Sigic Order and your Daedric Lords in that game sequence, where they were told they couldn't manifest on Mundus, meaning here. That is a contract between different groups saying you couldn't appear here. So this is exactly what was being said with the disclosure of the game. This we strive to change. This we strive to change within those cultures. And this, well, we're not going to defend you anymore if you assist here. We don't want that anymore. But it is far more complicated than people think. And if you want to change this, if you want to unmanifest this, by all means do so. 8 billion voices aimed at the same target. You would be very surprised what would happen. Just like in your Doctor Who, where the master turned himself into the whole master race, it was pointing towards the Martian Germans doing the thing to you, by the way. Temporal manipulation and psionic manipulation they showed in a later episode. But they showed him with 8 billion versions of himself, opening up a time rift where he was focusing on a single tone to bring Gallifrey back. That's the kind of change. If you did it positively, notice what happened on your DC mall when all those people entered it in the meditative state. World crime dropped by 10 to 15%. Imagine if everyone did it. You would be able to change the universal constants surrounding the Galactic Federation itself and its relationship to the ICC. The ICC is the go-between. You don't need a go-between. All you would need is maybe somebody to, say, watch who comes in and out of the solar system. Of course you need a wall, you need security. Of course, that would be stupid not to have that. Like people saying, oh, you don't need a wall in your country. Yes, you do. You need it for both financial and safety reasons. Every country has this. But without them, if anybody offers to take down your walls and takes away your weapons, rockets, and bombs, it might as well be to serve man, just like in your Twilight Zone episode. That was pegging certain groups that would abduct people and do that. And it was poking horrible fun at the Ebens, which is not going to be in this conversation. But just know they were saying both stories, Kabbalistic, Satanic, and Planet Serpo. But to go back to on point, if you don't want any of these things to take place, say so. Change. It's not like you see something, say something. It is more like not necessarily just become the change. It is more complex than that. You have to at least agree to disagree with one another. They're not saying invite home over your neighbor to dinner or anything like that. We're not saying that. This is also why we integrated in some of your neighbors, by the way, in both politics, academia, religion, all of these things, and in your regular neighborhoods, to try to stir up that agree to disagree, get to the heart of the matter in your neighborhoods, show people what they're missing and what they've allowed to lapse. And when the time comes, we may come out in the open again and say hello again. But as we have said before, that sometimes it could be a long road, but if you want to see that change too, by all means, say it. Also, buck, as Elena Vesta said, buck the system. If you see an alien in public, think to them that they're an alien. They have to drop everything and leave. You do that enough times, you're going to screw up ICC contracts with the Galactic Federation, I assure you. But that doesn't mean that that person can sit down and have a conversation with you, except telepathically. Unless they like it to be a glutton for punishment. But they can do it in protective areas. And I won't go into it any more than that. But what I will say is uncreate and unmanifest this system. You would be surprised what will happen. Deny the known, like you say, manifest differently. This is where I'm at with this.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming in and talking with us today. And just any last words before you go?
Just know that don't fall for the carrot and stick. Yes. Will they be putting this medical technology out? No, they will not. Will they be putting this bit of things out? No, they will not. They've slowly integrated into your economics, into your stores, into your medical community, into your anything financial where you have to buy it kind of thing. Will it go to Star Trek World overnight? No, it will not. Not like Q snapping its fingers and changing it. But don't fall for the narrative. And if you want these technologies released, don't turn it into a carrot and stick where you're just waiting on it to be released. You put it out there that it happens. You put it out there that it, by all the beings that can hear you out there, that this is what you want. This is considered a vote out there. In a weird way, kind of in a weird democratic, semi-democratic way, sort of. But it's more of a co-creative way, and they know it. They are well aware of what can happen here. They just don't want the noise of humanity cluttering up their Senate. If you guys were out there today, you would get some people that would just go ahead. And you'd be some people that'd be very joyful. I want to see the latter of that. There's always going to be some asshole in that Senate that won't have absolutely nothing to do with you. You experienced this yourself around the conference. There was just some people that wouldn't talk to you. It's the same goddamn thing. Where you even saw in a vision sequence one time where there was a reptilian that you were saying in your head, F you to him, at some kind of negotiation table. That's how it is right there. This is exactly how it is. as above, so below. This is why when you affect change here, it reflects and mirrors out there, and then reflects back. That will be the time you are ready. If you see any insider out there saying ready or not, here it comes, that is also a red flag, because that can't happen. Even the narrative your cabal wants to try. Will in your lifetime will aliens introduce themselves? Yes, I can honestly say this. But will there be travel to other worlds like you're hearing in some of these other stories, but with selected people, like what you heard in those stories? I can't exactly say yes or no to that. It's in flux. But if you want this, say it. In here and in here. This shows you're ready for it. So I believe I am good. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. Dang. All right. He was attempting to fix some of this over here too. I noticed he was starting to wobble a little bit because of some of the energy. Yeah, it's almost 4 o'clock now. Okay. Yeah, this is that was actually quite interesting. I will be honest, me and Bjorn stopped talking to Valiant Thor because of some personal issues that were kept popping up. This also included. I was pretty mad at Spirit for the allowance of. It's not that I don't understand what was said, but at times where you're getting hit, you don't care. And I know also fellow people that have been targeted, people that have been through the programs, you don't give a rat's bunghole about any other people that have not gone through it. I've called them one arrow people, whereas you've been hit with thousands of them, they've been hit with one. Why are they whining? And yes, I've thought this. I fully understand this, and other people that have been in the programs also see it that way. They don't call it that. But what he was trying to say is it makes those people not worthless. It makes those people not, lesser. It doesn't make their problems greater, but it doesn't make them lesser, is what he was trying to say. And I get into that snit when I get nailed. And that's perfectly understandable, as he said. But there's also greater things to be concerned about as well. So, Joanna, did you want to add anything?
No, I hope again everyone always gets something out of this conversation. A lot for you to think about. Again, work on yourself and especially look for things in yourself that are, contraindications where you're seeing incongruencies. Work on those within yourself. You want to.
Shadow work's important.
You've got to go and do these things. You want to truly be representative of who you are out there. So work on that. And then again, dream in what you want. And that's again what Valiant Soul. We've always said that you've got to go to the end, see it here, see what you want, see it working. How does it taste? How does it smell? How does it feel? And people may say, well, that's where, no, I'm saying it. If it's going on, what's going on? If you want to get along with your family and people and have people around, what are you doing? What are you doing in the kitchen? What are you laughing about? How does the food taste? Are you trying something new? You know what I mean? Have you been able to figure out how the food supply is dirty and how much better things taste? What does that taste like? Bring in the details of everything that you want going forward in a unity. What are you talking about? Mm-hmm. And how are you getting along so that we can make it clear to everyone out there and co-create what we want as the experience to come in.
And strengthening your core is actually very apt. And Valiant Thor thinks it's actually ironic that we have red, white, and blue in the same color coding here, where it's representing all these political strifes and everything. Yes, I know strengthening your country before everything else. That's the argument right now. That's true for self. Whereas you're strengthening your core, your self, then you are more qualified to interact with all of that community. Not getting rid of cultures that you feel are lesser, which in fact they are not. They just might have a knowledge deficit somewhere. They might have certain lands may have been invaded too many times and they've gotten all jaded and messed up. But it doesn't mean they don't have a right to exist. So that is actually very important here. So I think this is good. We can take it out here. So thank you, everybody, for watching this. I now hereby close this circle within true benevolence with no conflicting agendas as of this moment in time. So thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
I do want to say when Vesta came through and was talking about Valiant Thor, and when she said we had to hurry, that's why, because Valiant Thor was waiting to talk. So, I found it interesting. So, it is 4:41 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday, July 27th, 2024. Thank you.